So Joe's going to have a custom indicator written, and that indicator is going to have a data series. Let's see. So let me pull up BloodHound, and I'm going to get rid of this inflection solver here. Okay, threshold, and add a threshold on here. So I need to pull up BloodHound's select indicator window, and let's see. So I'm gonna just get. I need to look through some of these custom indicators here and see if I can find one that has a data series in it. Yeah, maybe the Woody CCI might be a good, a close approximation. Yeah, give me a moment to test that out. So, okay, let's get that Woody CCI on the chart here. Alright, I'm going to have to get myself familiar with the Woody CCI again because it's been a while since I've used this. Let's see. Alright, let's see. Maybe the chop indicator width will work here. And we take a look in BloodHound and see what's inside this. See what the data series are again. Let's see. Okay, so we have a data series chop zone and a data series sidewinder and a data series let's see, zone bars. Alright, just a moment here. Let me see if I can find what those zone bars are. Well, I'm not sure what the zone bars are. So alright, so let's go with the let's see, what do we have here? The chop zone. Yeah, okay, the chop. Yeah, there we go. Chopping indicator width. Let's make that a little wider. Make it really obvious what we're looking at. Alright, I think this chop zone will approximate what Joe's custom indicator is going to do here. Right, so you can see the thicker lines here. So on this Woody CCI indicator, right, we get these thicker lines here. You see how they're color coded. So I'm hoping that the different colors will return different values. And let's see, I need to slow the chart down here a little bit. So let's see, let's go back to a minute chart. Slow this down. Okay. So you notice how this chop zone colored line here has different colors on it, and so I'm hoping that these different colors will have different values in that data series. Alright, so let's see, let me open up the Woody CCI in BloodHound again. Alright, so you see we have this data series chop zone, and I'm hoping that this chop zone is referring to this colored bar here that I've got the arrow on. Let's see. Alright. So now let me just do some testing here. Yeah, okay. Alright, so let me kind of set the chart up here. I'm going to set the scaling up on BloodHound. All right. So we're just gonna focus on the long output, right? So when this chop zone is, I guess, in a positive directional output, right? So let me once again back up here. Kind of start from the beginning here. All right. So Joe's going to have a custom indicator written here. And it's going to have a data series. And this data series is, let's see, let me pull something up here to write with. All right. So Joe's going to have a custom indicator written that, and it's going to have a data series, and this data series is going to contain something like either a +2 or a +1, a 0, or a -1 or a -2. All right, so these are the possible values that could be inside of this data series. All right, and so this chop zone is kind of doing the same thing here. So this chop zone is either containing a 0 or a +1 or a -1. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to detect. What Joe wants to do is detect when there is a +1, or I'm sorry, when there is a +2 or a +1 or 0, So Joe's obviously just trying to detect when, when one of these values, one of these 5 different values exists in the data series, right? And then you'll know what to do after that. So that is what ultimately I'm trying to show you how to do here. That's what this question is all about. Okay, so all right, so we're using the chop zone, long and short output, and for now, to keep things simple, my short outputs, I'm just going to leave them all set to 0. Right? We're just going to focus on just the long output only here, just to kind of keep things a little simple. And let's see, let's give this a name here. All right. So this first threshold solver is going to look for the woody chop zone to be a 1 or a -1 value there. And so right now, so in the threshold in A, I just put a 1 in there. And in the long output here, we have greater than 1. So this threshold solver is going to give us a long output when that data series contains a 1 or greater value. And if you notice the colors, right? So when these bars are colored blue, that's denoting a positive value in the chop zone. And we're getting a long output the entire time. And that's because the data series contains a 1 or greater. So that data series could also be containing a 2, or that data series could be containing a 3, a +3, right? And we're going to get a long output as long as that data series equals 1 or a higher number. But what Joe's wanting to do is, typically what you're going to want to do is just identify when does this data series contain a 1 only, separate from when does this data series contain a 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a 1 in both A and B, but in A, we're going to set A to 1.1, just something slightly slightly greater than 1, right? So this first threshold solver is only going to detect a positive 1 or a negative 1. Right, so we're going to put a value in A greater than 1 because we only want to detect when that data series contains a 1. We don't want to detect when it contains a 2 or a 3. So now we need to go down here and adjust our output. So we don't want a long output if that data series is greater than 1.1. Right? Because that would mean the data series contains 2 or 3 or 4. So we're going to turn this output off. But we do want to know when that data series does equal 1, a positive 1. And so we're going to set this to 1. So now, if we look at the chart, we can see that these two bars, that data series contains a 1. And when that data series contains something greater than 1, such as a positive 2 or a positive 3, right, there's no output anymore. Here. And the way we got, right, so the way we removed the output when that data series contains 2 or 3 or greater, the way we removed that output, right, is we did this. We set A greater than 1, and then in our output we set greater than 1.1. We turned that off. We just left it at 0, and then the at 1 is left at 1, is set to 1. Right? So now that we've got the long side working, now we can focus on setting up the short side. So we're going to put a -1 down here in D. And you guys have probably figured out we're going to put a -1.1 down in E. And so now if we look at the short outputs down here, right, we have a at 1 or a less than 1.1. And so if we want to know when that data series contains a -1 only, then we're going to turn that short output on. And so there we go. Right, so the pink output here, right, is the when that data series contains a 1. Let's see. Yeah, that's a little different color, slightly different. So let me go into the indicator colors again. I'm not sure what these colors are doing. I don't see specific colors for the chop zone here, but let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like I can modify the color for the chop zone. Alright, well, okay, we'll just continue on. Okay, so where we left off was we've got a threshold solver that's detecting a +1 or a -1 only. So let's see, it's time to start working on the logic board here. So let's see. Alright, so let's add this threshold solver on here. Alright, we've got that one working so far. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of this, and we'll set this copy up to look for a +2 or a -2. Okay. So let me put that on the logic board first. So there's that new one, +2, -2. And I'll have to go in and adjust the settings. Alright, so if we want to find when that data series contains 2, only a 2, right, we're just going to have to go in here, change our numbers, like so, change our threshold numbers. And it doesn't look, let's see, it doesn't look like that data series will contain a 2. Interesting. Well, alright, let's adjust these numbers and go to 3. See what happens here. Ah. Well, maybe that data series will contain a 2, but let me just scan through the chart here a little bit. Ah, it does. Okay. So here we go. So let's see. Oh yeah, remember, so this lighter pink contained a 1 and this darker pink color contained a 2. Let's see, let's keep scrolling back. And here we go. So here's a couple of bars where that chop zone contains a 2 or a -2. Right. So there we go. And so now let's make another threshold solver that's going to find a +3 or a -3 in that threshold value. So I'm just going to change the name for now. Put that on the logic board. Alright, so now I'll go in and change the threshold values here. So we're going to change this to 3 and 3, -3, and -3.1. Alright, you'll notice that there's BloodHound still gives an output here, right? So remember, these 2 bars is when that data series contains 2, right? So if I take a look at this threshold solver here, right, which is looking for a value of 2, right? There's those 2 bars, they contain a value 2. Now this other one, right? So this threshold solver on the bottom here, right, is looking for 3, and you'll notice that so when the data series contains 2, it's going to give you an output here, but as you can see, it's not enough to trigger a signal or a racing stripe, right? But you do get an output here. Excuse me. But when that data series does actually contain 3, right, you'll see that you will get a racing stripe, and a BloodHound will give you a full signal here. Right, so looking at this bar right here, this is when the data series contains a -2, right, but it's not enough to trigger a racing stripe or a signal. And here we go. So here's where that data series contains a -1. Let's see. Right, so right here, that data series contains a -1, and right, so it has an output, but a very small output. And then that bar is when the data series contains a -3, and we can see we get a full racing stripe here. And same thing over here, just the reverse, right? So we got a couple of bars where that data series contains a +1 and so we get a little bit of an output, and then over here we get a bar where that data series actually contains a positive 3, and we get a racing straight. So let's see. There is a way to get rid of these minor outputs here. For this solver that's looking for right, a positive 3 or negative 3, we can get rid of that. But we'll need some other nodes to do that. So let's see. I'm going to take a look at the long-short modifier, see if this has something that'll do that. Let's see, not that. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna use the let's see, the signal. I could use either the signal counter or the signal extender. Doesn't matter which one. So I'm just gonna grab the signal extender. Let's plug this in here. So I'm having to use one of the fancier function nodes because right, the signal extender has this signal threshold setting in it. So that's really what I'm looking for. It's a signal threshold. Right, so the signal blocker, signal counter, and signal extender, they all have this signal threshold. And so I'm going to utilize this signal threshold to get rid of, right, these this output here when that data series contains a 1, and it gives us this little small output. So to get rid of those little small outputs, I'm going to use this signal threshold to do that. And so I'm not using the signal extender for what it was designed for. Right? You can see the signal extender is designed to take a signal and extend it forward. But I'm going to set this extend signals for 1. I'm going to set it down to 1. And do that. And my resets, let's see, I need to turn that on. There we go. So the reset, so this input no signal, I need to turn that to true. And I'm missing something here. Let's see, what am I missing? Let's see, what am I missing? Well, okay, let me try the signal counter to do this. Ah, okay. So it was the signal counter I needed. Yeah, not the signal extender. There we go. Okay. So let me delete the signal extender. Alright, so the signal counter. And so I'm setting the counting up to 1. My look back is going to be 1. And then the signal threshold here is at 0.8. And that, there we go. So that is eliminating, right, the minor outputs. There we go. Alright, so that's how I was able to clean up this threshold solver here. So let's take a look, right? So there's the threshold solver, right, with the these little minor outputs. And if I use a signal counter, right, I can clean up and get rid of those minor outputs if you need to do that. So, all right. So hopefully it kind of demonstrates, that if it's very easy to just kind of go in here and play around and experiment with a few things, until you find what you want. And so I could do the same thing here. So remember, this threshold solver is looking for a 2 or a -2. So if I scroll back on the chart, right, here's one bar that has a 2. But also we can see that when that data series contains a 1, that the solver that's looking for, right, a value of 2 or -2, it also has, right, a minor output here. So if we wanted to clean this up, we would have to grab another signal counter. We could just pass that through another signal counter and clean that up, right? So now we can see those little minor values are gone, and we only see an output here, right, or a signal when that data series contains a 2 or a -2. So, all right. So I'll just leave this at that. I'll just leave it like this. All right. So Mike is asking. So he's asking, how can you place a stop at the open of the candlestick I just entered on? So Mike, Raven doesn't have the ability to specify exactly where your stops will go. So Raven, you can put in a fixed offset for your stop based on what the entry is, or in Raven, yeah, here, let's pull Raven up here. Let's get Raven open just so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so as you can see, right, Raven has a profit target and a stop loss, right? And it's just, those are just your standard offsets. In this case, it would be in ticks, right? So you can create a profit target and stop loss just using a standard offset, such as like 20 ticks and 10 ticks. Or if you wanted, you could use an ATR based offset, right, or a percentage based offset, but ticks. So as you can see, there's no option to say set my stop at this certain indicator value or this certain price of the bar. So Raven doesn't have that capability. That's a little more advanced. So Raven's profit targets and stop losses are basically the same. You know, it's the same setup as Ninja's using Ninja's ATM. You know, so if you decide to use NinjaTrader's ATM, right, when you set up your ATM, once again, it's just a fixed stop loss offset. So, let's see. Let's see. All right. So Mike is asking, okay, can you program it as an exit logic? So let's see. You want it to be the open price of the bar that was entered on. You can. Yeah, we could do this as an exit logic, but it would get really complex, and there are some limitations. So to do, so to use like the open price of a bar as your exit logic. Let's see. Let me get rid of that. Okay. So. Yeah. All right. Let's let me kind of explain this here. So. So let's say you got a long entry, and you want your stop to be set at the open price of that bar, right? So your stop is going to extend out, as long as necessary. So what BloodHound needs is something that's going to track that opening price. Come on. There we go. So BloodHound. So when we get to the here, let's do this. Okay. So we get a signal. The next bar occurs, and and boom, you're long in a trade. And so on this bar, the entry bar, all right. So actually, the trade's opened on the next bar, right? So what BloodHound needs to know is BloodHound needs something that can track the open price, right, of this previous bar here, where the signal occurred. And if tracking prices is done by indicators, so BloodHound would need an indicator to track that open price for as long as necessary, right? So when we get to the next bar, once again, BloodHound needs to know, okay, which open price from which bar is our exit logic going to be set to. Now we could, let's see how to explain this. We could set up in BloodHound the ability to keep looking back. So what we have to do is when we get to the second bar here, to the second bar right after the trade fires off, BloodHound would have to look back, right? Would have to look back 2 bars now to get that opening price. And so then a third bar comes along, and so now BloodHound has to look back 3 bars to get that opening price. So as you can see, as each bar progresses, BloodHound has to keep looking back. And so that's where it gets a little complicated in using BloodHound logic to keep looking back to see what that open price was, right? Because BloodHound doesn't track prices for you, such as indicators, right? Such as a moving average is tracking the moving average on every single bar, but you know, BloodHound is not that kind of an indicator. So BloodHound, you know, isn't a tracking type of an indicator. So so the best way to do it is you really need a custom indicator that tracks that open price. But what we could do is set up a series of logic that that as each bar goes by, the logic keeps looking back 1 bar to get that open price. But you have to see that. So as every bar goes by, you have to have another group of logic. So you can see that your logic's going to get pretty big, pretty quick. So this wouldn't work indefinitely, but you know, but I could show you how to do that. So let me set. You know, let me get some things set up here. So let me just use this entry signal solver again. All right, let me find a good bar to work on. All right, yeah, this isn't really providing good signals. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so instead of using those solvers, let me just make a new crossover solver here. Right, so I've already got an SMA 10 and EMA 55 on my chart, right? Those red and white moving averages on the chart. So let me just make a simple crossover signal here, something to work with. Okay, so we have a short signal, right? There's our open price, so that's going to set the stop, or that's going to, so that open is going to set, yeah, the exit logic trigger. So there we go. Okay. So let's just back up. All right. So there's our short signal, and so we're not stopped out yet, right? We're still in the trade. Price goes back down. We're still in the trade, and still in the trade, and then eventually price crosses the open price of the bar. So right there. So on this bar, we'd get an exit signal on this bar here after crossing the open price of the short signal bar here. All right. Let's see. So the solver that we're going to use to do this is a crossover solver. So we're going to be looking for, right, for the bar to cross over this line, right? So remember, so this white line here is basically, here, let me, instead of using a line, how about if I use an arrow? So I'm using an arrow because as each bar goes by, we're constantly having to look back to the open price of that bar. So another bar goes by, we have to look back to the open price of that bar. Next bar occurs, and once again we have to look back, and we have to keep looking back. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use a crossover solver. And so I guess in this case I'll use the high price of the bar to see if the high price of the bar, right, crosses over the open price of the entry bar. And so the opposite will be true. You know, for a long signal, we'd be looking at the low of the bar to see if the low of the bar crosses the opening price, right, to exit out of a long signal here. So let's grab a crossover solver. And all right, so essentially what we're doing is we're just comparing a bunch of prices. Yeah, we're just comparing a bunch of prices here. Yeah. Let me get myself lined up. There we go. Alright, so that's the entry signal bar. And so the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to check, right, I'm going to check to see did the high price here cross above the open price of that bar. So I'm going to set indicator A to price, and I'm going to set indicator B as well to price. Alright, so let's get back to indicator A. So, alright, so this is a short signal here. Yeah, we got a short signal. So I want to generate a long signal to exit that short. So let's see, so the price type for a long signal is I want to use the high price of the bar, right? Because I want to see if the high price of the bar crosses above that open price of the bar. And let's shorten that up. There we go. And so to generate a short signal, right, I'm just going to use the opposite. I'm going to use the low price, right? So if we got a long signal, we're going to be using the low price of the bar to see if the low price of the bar crosses the open price for a long signal. So, okay, so now down here in indicator B is going to be tracking, we're going to be setting it up so that it's always looking at the open price of the entry bar, right? So it's always going to be looking at the open price of the entry bar. So we want to take price type long, set it to open, and price type short, set it to open. And so here's the key, is setting the look back period. So we need to set this to 2 for now. And let's see here. Right. Okay, so for now, just ignore the signals that are on here for now. We're only interested in this bar here, right? So, and we can see there's no signals on this bar here, so that's good because this, right, price did not cross above the open price, right, to exit this short trade yet. So no signal there. And so the key is going to be that we keep incrementing this look back period. So this solver only works for the next bar, right, for the bar after the signal. So when we get to this bar, we have to build another solver, right? We have to build a new solver here for the next bar. So what this solver is doing is it's looking at the high of the bar and seeing if it crossed above the open of the previous bar back. So that's why we're getting a long signal. So let's see. So what the crossover solver is doing is it's taking a look at the high price and it's looking back one bar and seeing if the high was greater than the open price of the previous bar, and of course it was. So we're getting a long signal here. So this solver is only good for let's see. Oh, what can I use to draw with? It's only good for this bar here. Come on, click on that. There we go. All right. So remember, this is our signal. This is our entry signal bar. And so this solver that we just built is only good for the next bar afterwards. It's not good for the second. It's not going to work for this second bar after, right? It's not going to work for the third or the fourth. It's only going to work for this one bar here, right? And we can see that it only works for this bar because look, we're getting signals on these other bars here, which are incorrect. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a filter to this solver so that it gets rid of these other signals here that we don't want. So first, let's give this some kind of a name here. Let's see, what kind of a name here? Okay, so this is looking at the high or the low, crossing over the open, one bar, crossing over the open. Let's see, one bar back. And so what we need to do, right, is apply a filter to this. And so whenever you're filtering something, you need an AND node. Let's connect that AND node. And so I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the entry signal bar. And what I need to do is I need to take this entry signal and move it forward onto the next bar that this solver is good for. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the look back. Feed the look back in there. And so, let's see, let's take a look at that. Alright, so you can see this look back, right? Took the short entry signal and shifted it forward onto the next bar. Let's see. Alright, before I do that, I need a long short modifier first. There we go. So, okay, so what I did is I used this long short modifier to turn the short signal into a long and a short. Alright, so we can see that's a long and a short now. And let's see. Just lost my spot. Where's my spot? Alright, just a moment. Let me find that spot where I was working at. There we go. Let's see. Actually, we're generating an exit signal, so actually instead, I'm going to use the swap. Yeah. All right. Instead, I'm going to use the swap. So the reason is, right. So for a short entry signal, we want a long signal to exit that short, right? A long signal is going to exit that short. So that's why I used the swap. So the swap turned that long, I'm sorry, the swap mode turned that short entry signal into a long signal, right? Okay, so now I'm going to take that and so I'm going to take that and feed it into this look back. There we go. All right, so this look back, what it's doing now is it took the short signal, right? It took this short entry signal, and we shifted it forward onto the next bar, and then reversed it into a long signal. And so that's our filter. So since this solver only works on the first bar after the entry signal, so now this look back basically only creates a signal on the first bar after the entry signal. So remember back here, so if we look at the entry signals, so remember this is a long, let's grab that. Yeah, so we had a long entry signal there. So if we look at this look back node, right, the bar afterwards now has a short after the entry, and same thing over here. This long is the bar after the short entry. So put that together in a AND node, and that actually is our exit signal. But that's only an exit signal for the first bar after the entry signal. So what we have to do is we have to take this set of logic here, these three nodes, and we have to make copies of them and modify them for each bar after the entry signal. And you have to keep doing that for as many bars as you might need your exit signal to go on. So now I think you can understand the kind of the limitation of doing this in BloodHound. So versus if you had an indicator that could actually track that open price that you want to use as your stop, right? If you had an indicator to track the open price that you want to use as a stop, it would be a lot easier. We'd only need one solver. But since we're trying to use BloodHound to track that open price, we're going to have to take this logic and just constantly repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So let me go back here, and so I'm going to take this crossover solver. I'm going to make a copy, and so now this one's going to look 2 bars back, and so I need to set my look back period to 3, and I just need to increment that up by 1. So I'm going to go back to the logic template, and let's add that new solver. So there's that new solver with 2 bar look back. So I'm going to put that down here. I have to grab another AND node, connect that up, and let me put these a little tighter here. So I'm just going to name this AND node, and let me name this AND node. Alright, and I need another look back. Okay, now this look back, I'm going to increment the displacement to 2 now. Right, so remember this look back up here, it had a displacement of 1. The second look back is going to have a displacement of 2. And you can see now, right, you see how this long signal is on the second bar after. Right, it's on this second bar after our entry bar. Right, this look back was on the first bar after the entry bar. So this one's on the second bar after the entry bar. So connect that into the AND node. And so there's our exit logic for the second bar after the entry signal. And so I'm going to have to build a couple more sets of these until we finally get to this 4th bar where the exit signal will occur. So just organize those a little cleaner. Let's put that back there. There. Alright, so let me go make another. So this is going to be 3 bars after the entry signal, so I need to increment my look back period down here. Right, so you can see that basically this new solver I just made, it's going to look at the open price, it's going to look at it 3 bars back. So even though this look back period is set to 4, it's actually looking 3 bars back. It's just how NinjaTrader decided to increment their look back period. Right, so you can see if we look at each of these solvers, right, so this first solver, it has a look back period of 2, so it's having to look back 1 bar to get the open price of 1 bar back. this next solver to get, it's looking at the open price going 2 bars back, and then we got another solver that's getting the open price looking 3 bars back, and so on and so forth. So let me make another one here. So 4, increment that to 5. So I've got enough solvers to work in for just this example here, just this small area that I picked on the chart as an example. So in reality, Mike, you're going to need a lot more of these, in your system to get a complete exit signal, right? So let me take those solvers on and put them on the board here. Put them down here. Put some AND nodes down here. Alright, now I need to grab a couple of lookbacks. Let's connect that in there. Take my look back, and this one needs to be set to 3. Right, let's see, yeah, this one up above was set to 2. So this next one down needs to be set to 3. Connect that in there. Let's take a look at it. So now we're looking at, let's see which bar. Yeah, we're looking at this bar right here. So this is 3. 3 bars after. Alright, so let's work on this 4th set here. So I just need to grab another look back. Right, set that look back to 4. And let's connect this guy in here, in there, like so. And so now we're looking at this 4th bar. And there is our exit signal. So there's the correct exit signal. Alright. And so now the last step, final step here, is we need to connect all of these into an OR node. Alright, so that when any of these 4 fire off that exit signal, whichever one fires off the exit signal first can just pass through the OR node, and from the OR node to our result node. So let's see if we get any more exit signals here. I wonder if any more occur. Ah, there's one. Okay. Let's take a look at this and see. Alright, so let's take a look at our entry signal. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So remember, this crossover solver back here is our entry signal. So here we go. There's our entry signal. So we got a short, and let's draw a line at the open price of that bar. Draw that out, and shoot, I thought Ninja had a way to make sure that this is a perfectly horizontal line. I guess not. I'm holding down the shift keys and the control keys to see if I can get this to snap to a straight line. I guess not. Okay, so anyways, I'll just draw it on here manually. Alright, so there's our, that open price, kind of setting the stop price. And if we extend it out, we can see that price here, price did actually cross that, so it should have, right? So that would have hit the stop. And so if we look at our exit signals, boom, there's our exit signals because the high price did break above the open of that bar back. It broke above the open of our entry bar. All right, so that one looks good. And let's see. All right, so we got another one here. Let's take a look at this. All right, let's find the entry signal. All right, there's our entry signal. And let's see, that's a down bar. Okay, so there's the open price of the bar. Extend that across. All right, so we can see, right, this bar, the wick crossed above the open there. So that's where our exit signal should be. And let's take a look. And it's not. Let's see. Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just thinking about this. I think I should have used a comparison solver instead of a crossover solver. I think a comparison solver would have been a little more precise. Yeah, all right, so let me convert these crossover solvers into a comparison solver. All right, so I've got my first comparison solver set up here, and I set it up exactly the same way as I set up these crossover solvers. So if you look at indicator A and indicator B, all the settings are the same, right? So indicator B is set to the open price, whereas indicator A was set to the high and low, and the look back period, and so on and so forth. And wait. Actually, that is correct. Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, I was reading this totally wrong. This is a long signal, and of course, price fell below the open price. Yeah, so that should have been an exit. Sorry, guys, I was just reading that wrong. So I really didn't need a comparison solver. I guess the crossover solver was working fine. Yeah, that's right. So the high of the bar fell below the open price of this long entry signal, and so it gave us a exit signal. So sorry. So this was correct. This is correct. But I guess I kind of showed you guys that both a crossover solver or a comparison solver both works in this case, you know, for this particular instance. So alright, yeah, let's take a look at this exit signal here. So let's see, let's take a look at the entry. So we got short cross down, short signal there, and so there's, let's see, yeah, there's the open price. And of course the next bar was an up bar above the open price, and so we should get an exit signal right there. Close that sucker out. Yeah, there we go. So so I guess, you know, that does it there, Mike. So really, Mike, what you just have to do is you just have to keep rebuilding new groups of solvers, right, and just keep incrementing. You just have to keep incrementing the lookback displacement, and in the solver you just have to keep incrementing the lookback period that's finding the open price. Right. So that's the key, and you just keep adding that, so you can see that, you know, I mean, obviously there's some kind of a limitation, you know, I mean, I guess you could build 20 of these, you know, so your exit signal would work for 20 bars after your entry signal. You know, you could build a lot more, but of course it just, you know, takes a lot more time and effort if you want to build a system that works for you know, 50 bars after your entry signal to close out. But you know, that does kind of work, and you know, it does provide you a solution. So just to take a look here, so this is a long short modifier, and the mode was just left on swap. So that swap is the default mode. So all I had to do is just grab a long short modifier, and that's all this is. Alright, so all I'm doing is the concept of what I'm doing is, right, this is the entry signals, right? So this guy here represents your entry signal. So if you have, you know, so if you have multiple solvers and a bunch of logic that comprises your entry signals, that's what needs to be behind this long short modifier. So you take your entry system, you know, logic, and connect it into a long short modifier, and then connect that into all of these lookbacks. Right, so let's see. Let me give this a name here. Okay. All right. So obviously you're going to have one logic template, which is your entry signal logic, and then you're going to want to make a copy. Use the copy button here to copy your entry logic. So that way you've got your entry logic here, right, which is just represented by this simple one solver. And so after your entry logic, you'll create this long short modifier, and then create the rest of this logic here to develop your exit signals. And okay, see, so Mike was asking how to set up the first swap. So really there's nothing to set up. You're just using the default settings for this long short modifier. And then the look back, the first look back, once again, you're just using the default settings. I didn't have to change anything on the first look back. So it was only the second and third and fourth look backs that I had to start incrementing the displacement there. Yeah. Okay, yeah, with that, guys, I'll say cheerio. Have a good weekend, and I hope to see you guys next week, next Friday. All right, bye-bye, guys.